A reading from the Gospel according to John, chapter 8. Jesus once again addressed them, "I am the world's light. No one who follows me stumbles around in the darkness. I provide plenty of light to live in." The Pharisees objected, "All we have is your word on this. We need more than this to go on." Jesus replied, "You're right that you only have my word, but you can depend on it being true. I know where I've come from and where I go next. You don't know where I'm from or where I'm headed. You decide according to what you can see and touch. I don't make judgments like that. But even if I did, my judgment would be true because I wouldn't make it out of the narrowness of my experience, but in the largeness of the one who sent me. That fulfills the condition set down in God's law, that you can count on the testimony of 2 witnesses. And that is what you have. You have my word, and you have the word of the one who sent me." They said, "Where is this so-called one who sent you?" Jesus said, "You're looking right at me, and you don't see me. How do you expect to see God? If you knew me, you would at the same time know God." Jesus gave this speech in the treasury of the temple. No one arrested him because his time wasn't yet up. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
I'm taking my lead from our music today. It's Jazz Sunday. It's warm, it's in the heat of the summer, and we have a looser, more casual feel. So I don't have a sermon manuscript, I just have an outline in rough terms. And musically, I've got a chord chart, and I'm gonna make up the melody and the rhythm as we go, and you're gonna help me create that as well. I think that's what's going on with Jesus and the Pharisees in the conversation that Charlie just read from John's Gospel. Now remember that the Pharisees, who are they? They are religious authorities. They are Jewish religious authorities. They were the gatekeepers of how to live into Jewish law and practice custom, ritual, right? And interpretation. So they took themselves quite seriously, as they should have, as leaders of the Jews. So when Jesus comes along saying, "I'm the world's light," or "I am the light of the world," in another translation, the Pharisees get suspicious and they feel a little threatened and they are troubled. They are troubled by Jesus saying, "Yeah, I am the world's light. I'm the light of the world." So what do they tell them? You remember what the Pharisees say to Jesus? "We need more to go on." We need more to go on than just your word, right? They need more proof, more explanation. And Jesus says, "You're right. You only have my word. You only have my word." Now, I love this because for those of you who know your Bible, in the beginning of John's Gospel, how does it begin? In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in John's telling, the opening of his gospel, he is saying Jesus, the Word, was with God and was God. And so when the Pharisees say, "I need more to go on than just your word," Jesus says, "You're not seeing me, and you're not seeing the one who sent me." Again and again, friends, Jesus points to God in John's Gospel, right? He points not to himself, but he says, "It's God, it's the one who sent me. Not about me. It's about the one who sent me." And in this translation, Jesus says, "It's not the narrowness of my own experience, but in the largeness of the one who sent me." It's a lovely translation from the Message. It's not the narrowness of me, but it's the largeness of the one who sent me. So if you want to know what I'm doing, Jesus says, why I'm here, look to God. I am here as the embodiment of God's ways. So we're going to do a little conversation, and if Penny and one other deacon get the mics, and just, if you'd be willing, what are examples of God's ways, right? Jesus says, look, I'm here to embody God's ways, to magnify the one who sent me. What would those be? Just tick some off. Raise your hand. We just need a quick list. Some of God's ways.
Feeding the hungry.
Feeding the hungry. And Adam, you've got one?
Being kind to strangers.
Kind to strangers. What else? Mike, what do you have?
Forgiving sinners.
Forgiving those who sin. It includes all of us.
I got
Lynn.
one. Greet everyone as Jesus.
Greet everyone as Jesus would greet. Jill.
Speak truth to power.
Speak truth to power. Yes. These are all wonderful examples of God's ways, and so many more. But that's just a reminder of some of the reasons that God sent Jesus to be with us. So as I was thinking of our fabulous jazz music this morning, I think of God as the chord chart. We got our chords, right? We got the basic harmony, the progression of the chords, the sure foundation. And above that, we get the improvised melody and different rhythms and a cool bass line. And I think that's Jesus, the improviser. God, the foundation, the chord chart, and then Jesus does all the improvisation above and around and with the chords that are spelled out for him. So this morning we have Mike on bass and Tom on rhythm, Phil on the piano, melody, harmony. But you all have a chord chart that you're working from, right? You've got the basic chords, and then there's room for your own creativity, your own spirit to move. I think that's how Jesus related to God. So, the jazz of Jesus. Now, in all four gospel accounts of Jesus' life, right, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, we get, of course, Jesus' life, his death, his resurrection, and God's ways are the foundation. And Jesus, at least for this morning, think of him as the improviser. In John's gospel, we have 7 I am statements. The first is, I am the bread of life. The second is from today's reading, I am the light of the world. And then in following chapters, I am the door, I am the good shepherd, I am the resurrection and the life, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And the last one, I am the true vine. 7 I am statements in John's gospel. And as I was thinking about this reflection, meditation, homily today, I did a little research about jazz. I'm classically trained, but I know something about jazz. And there are at least 7 kinds of jazz. There are more subcategories, but here are 7 big ones. You got big band and swing, funk, cool jazz, ragtime, bebop, Dixieland, and the 12-bar blues. 7 kinds of jazz, 7 I am statements about who Jesus was, why he came, and how we are to live. Okay, so also in jazz, there's a wonderful and rich history of soloing, right? You got your little ensemble, and then maybe the saxophone player steps out and does a solo, or the clarinetist, or the pianist, or the trumpet player. You get your solo. And during the solo, they are often long. They simply play in the moment. Nothing is written down. They've got the basic chords or the basic harmonies, but the clarinetist, the sax player, the trumpeter, the pianist, they don't know quite what's going to happen in that moment. And they trust in their own skill and musicality and the creative spirit to be with them, and the rest of the combo is there to support them. I think there are jazz solos here in our community of faith. Times when certain people step up and step out, and times when we support and hold and keep the foundation. So for instance, right now, Mike Smith is our moderator, man of many talents. But prior to him, it was Gina Mitchell. And prior to Gina, it was Ellen Freeman. And we have a long list of moderators of years past, right? Someone steps up to take the leadership role, to have their solo, and we, the congregation, support them. We're the foundation. Likewise, our staff, right? There are times when Liam steps up, or Jacob in the office, or our organist, or John directing the choir. They step up, have their solo, so to speak, and the foundation holds. Of course, it's also true of ministries that we have here, right? Sometimes we are all about loaves and fishes coming up, or we're about sponsoring the family from Syria, or it's time to figure out Sunday school and Christian education, or what we're doing in the forum. All kinds of ministries that get foregrounded and then backgrounded, foreground, background. But the foundation remains. The chord progression is in place. I also think of the cycle of the church year. When does the church year begin, friends? Advent. Thank you, Marilyn. Excellent. I teach this to my confirmation kids. It doesn't start in January. It doesn't start with the school year. The church year starts with Advent, and then we go through that amazing cycle of Advent, Epiphany, Holy Week, Easter, Pentecost, ordinary time, right? Each of those has its solo moment, and then it goes into the background until we hear that solo again. Okay, so that's my premise for today. God's the chord progression over which we individually and collectively improvise. So now I ask you, turning to our own personal faith journeys, there are times we feel closer to God, the Spirit, or Jesus. There are times that it feels very far away, perhaps even absent. There are times when we have our childhood faith and understanding, and then we likely go through a period of wrestling or questioning or wondering, rejection, and then we move into an adult, more mature faith and relationship with the divine. There are times maybe when we feel closer to certain biblical characters, like, oh, wow, that story of Abraham and Sarah really resonates with me. The story of Esther, or the story of David, or the story of Peter or Nicodemus. Those characters can call forth in us a time where we feel like we step forward, step out solo with that character. So I ask you, where are you in your improvisation of faith right now? Where are you? Is there a character in the Bible that you feel close to? Is there a season of the church year that you yearn for? Are you feeling adrift or lost, even forsaken? The chord progression remains. God's foundation is always there. And where are you in relation to that? Anybody willing to speak up and share?
I can share that I had a bad fall a couple weeks ago, and I see God in all of you, in the way you have loved and supported me in my healing. I'm very, very grateful.
So Leslie, your journey right now is feeling held. Mm-hmm. Others of you, if you're willing to say out loud. Lauren.
I'll use the analogy. So in speaking of jazz and someone soloing over the chord charts, I think one of the most important things for the other musicians who aren't soloing is to listen. And I think, myself included, in the world today, I think we're always thinking about, in this case, okay, what am I going to play when my solo comes? Instead of listening to the person and supporting that person and playing something that harmonically supports what they're doing, instead of, I'm going to play this, I'm going to just wait till I get my chance. So, but I think I do that, don't I, dear?
That's lovely, Lauren. Thank you. The listening, indeed. Couple more, anybody? Ralph.
I figure I'll be figuring it out until my last day on earth, and the figuring it out is the faith for me.
Ah, beautiful. Beautifully said. So honest. Thank you, Ralph. Yes. Anyone else? Adam.
I'm in a in-between place of connecting to God through outgoing service and love, but also trying to be present to God individually and receiving God's love. And I know that both can happen at the same time, but I'm noticing both practices of, showing up and being present individually and seeking an experience of God's cradling love, and also showing up in the world and putting it out in the world. And they're two different energies that are connected, and one feeds the other, and et cetera, but finding the balance.
Beautiful. It's a Mobius strip of receiving, giving, right? Sometimes more and less, but yes. Judy.
I've got one more, sort of a musical metaphor that kind of builds on that. When you're playing in an ensemble, it's really hard to play slowly and beautifully. And so just a reminder that it's again, this balance. It's maybe not more. It's maybe, okay, slow it down, pay attention, take it slow.
Singing slowly and softly is harder than loud and fast, right, John Haberman? Singing slowly and softly, more energy, more required of us. And Lynn, you get the last one. What is it? Let's hear it.
Last week, a bunch of longtime friends gathered as a reunion and remembered 30-some classmates who have gone before us, which felt holy and incredibly moving. And I think we all felt sort of like on a bridge. It feels to me like a bridge between the we're here now, some of us aren't, and it's a thin veil and a bridge, but it was very holy.
Bridge, beautiful image, right? Foundation, crossing over. Well, God is the chord progression over which we play out our lives, and through which we play out our lives, and because of which we play out our lives. Remember Jesus saying, "It's not the narrowness of my own experience, but the largeness of the one who sent me."